Beryl is already a major hurricane, but it's forecast to get even stronger, becoming a Category 4 with wind gusts of over 155 miles an hour as it moves through the Windward Islands tomorrow. Your forecast for the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. It's good to see you on a Sunday. I hope it was under better circumstances, but coming up in this video, we have to really get into the significant impacts that is likely from Hurricane Beryl in the Windward Islands starting late tonight and throughout the day on our Monday. Beryl is already a major hurricane. So we're going to deep dive into Beryl, but this is a comprehensive video. I'm also going to be covering Invest 94L in the southwest Gulf of Mexico and Invest 96L, which is east of Beryl and could impact portions of the Lesser Antilles as we get into midweek. Let's talk about the latest information on Beryl. I'm going to show you this satellite imagery, and this is just a buzzsaw. Again, as of the 11 a.m. advisory here on this Sunday, Beryl has winds of 120 miles an hour. The eye has clearly formed on our enhanced satellite imagery. This is a classic major hurricane already. Category 3, significant outflow on all sides. The wind field's beginning to expand. The hurricane force winds are beginning to expand from the center. The tropical storm force winds are getting more significant as well. This is going to be an extremely impactful hurricane for the Windward Islands starting late tonight, but especially throughout the day on our Monday. This is the enhanced satellite imagery. I'm going to show you the water vapor imagery here. Again, very clear to see that eye has become exposed. It is getting stronger and stronger. And again, there's nothing really stopping Beryl from getting even stronger as it approaches Barbados and the Windward Islands overnight and then throughout Monday morning. This is why the Hurricane Center takes it now to a Category 4 hurricane. Visible satellite imagery. There's the buzzsaw. Again, good outflow on all sides, extremely little wind shear. Beryl is a record-breaking storm. We've never had a hurricane this strong, this far east, this early in the year. It's unbelievable that we're talking about the last day of June, and we have this imagery to discuss. Now, you see the new watches and the warning. So I want to go over those, and then we'll look at the latest on Beryl. We have a hurricane warning now in effect for Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Tobago. We have a Grenada is included in that. If I didn't say that, I apologize. I'm going to say it one more time. Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, and Tobago. We have a tropical storm warning for Martinique and a tropical storm watch for Dominica and now Trinidad. Trinidad has now been put under a tropical storm watch. It means tropical storm conditions are possible in those areas. Here is the 11 a.m. advisory on Beryl. Winds are 120 miles an hour sustained. Pressure has dropped like a rock, 964 millibars, still moving rapidly west at 21 miles an hour. And that kind of forward speed is forecast through the Windward Islands. It's not expected to slow up much, if any. It is located right now 355 miles to the east, southeast of Barbados. But again, we're going to start to see some of these outer feeder bands coming in as early as late this afternoon and into the evening hours, where we're going to start to also kick up some of these winds as well. Of course, here at Meteo Mundo, we can take a look at all the current conditions for you as well. So I'm just going to throw on the current temperatures on the board right now. They're going to pop on in just a second, and then we'll take a look at the wind gusts as well. So these are the temperatures. These are the wind gusts at this point in time, besides a few, winds that are gusting to 25, maybe 30 miles an hour. It'll be this first line that will have some potential tropical storm force gusts coming with it, again, a little bit later into the afternoon and the evening, the first signs of things. Now, we're going to talk about and really deep dive into the impacts for the Windward Islands, but we also need to expand this and take a look at the newest track from the Hurricane Center as well. Again, just zooming in to show you that the forecast for the Hurricane Center is, as it moves through the Windward Islands, to have winds of 140 miles an hour, but potential wind gusts here on the product up to 167. Several models are supporting at least 155, but potentially even stronger. Look, the Hurricane Center doesn't use a lot of messaging like very dangerous major hurricane and life-threatening winds and storm surge expected without a lot of significance and meaning behind it. And that's the terms that they're using for Beryl into the Windward Islands. This could be catastrophic damage, life-threatening situation, something that all residents in this area need to heed extremely, extremely carefully. And we'll get more into this again as well. Beryl is forecast to stay Category 4 as it gets into the Eastern Caribbean. Now, there's going to be some wind shear in the Caribbean to try and knock Beryl down a little bit. The latest track from the Hurricane Center is farther to the south. You can see that we're not as close to Hispaniola anymore. There could still be potential hurricane impacts for the southern side of Hispaniola, but a little bit farther south is a little bit better, and those details will bear out in the next couple of days. We then have it moving south of Jamaica, but close enough where hurricane conditions are possible or likely for Jamaica as we get later in the week. I'm going to show you the timing of this coming up as well, but still a Category 3 major hurricane here as it is south and east of Jamaica with winds of 120 miles an hour. And the latest track from the Hurricane Center does have Beryl holding on, slowly losing strength. But again, when you're starting with a Cat 4, all right, it's going to take some time for this moderate wind shear to try and knock the storm down. You still have a Cat 2 south of the Cayman Islands, and then potentially still a Category 1 as it gets closer to places in northern sides of Central America and the Yucatan later in the week. So this is the timing of everything I just talked about. Again, throughout our Monday in the Windward Islands, south of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico on Tuesday. That position southeast of Jamaica is early Wednesday morning, so weather going downhill in Jamaica on this forecast track late Tuesday and into Wednesday, and then Thursday south and southwest of the Cayman Islands, and then potentially making landfall in the Yucatan, Central America area there, near Belize, near Cancun, near Cozumel early on Friday. Again, that is the official track for the Hurricane Center. Anything beyond this Tuesday is still subject to change. There is still some obviously variations in the model as you go farther out. Now, the European model has nudged itself a little bit farther south and is slightly south of where the Hurricane Center has the official track of Beryl. If anything, all of the models have been a little bit farther south in general. Again, that's a little bit better news for Hispaniola and Cuba, maybe slightly better news for Jamaica, but still hurricane impacts are possible. But again, not great news for portions of Central America and the Yucatan based on that particular track. Looking at the tropical models, you can see that all of them are extremely aggressive, but potentially not even aggressive enough. Category 3, again, the forecast from the Hurricane Center is a Category 4. So generally speaking, the models don't even have the strength of Beryl to be as significant as it should. And that is one thing that I have mentioned with these models. They're really good at picking up areas of development. They're really good at the track, but they just still don't have a handle about how intense these hurricanes have gotten over the last 5 years or so in such a short order, with all of the environmental conditions, including extremely hot sea surface conditions that are going to be coming into play. So again, strengthening is forecast. We're going to have ourselves more than likely a Category 4 hurricane moving through the Windward Islands. So let's break down what I anticipate out of these areas here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this area in red because that's the invest area here from 96L. We'll look at 96L here in a minute. And again, we see the classic buzzsaw coming through. It's right on line with obviously the Hurricane Center's track. You can see the hurricane warnings that are flashing right now in red for St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Tobago, and Barbados. This track has shifted ever so slightly south over the last 12 hours. But when you're talking about islands that are very clustered together, that little subtle shift south can be significant. That's why Tobago has been upgraded to a hurricane warning, even though the center is still going to be north of Tobago right now. Tobago would be south of the center, still close enough for extremely strong winds in Tobago. Grenada's impacts and the Grenadines would be much more direct on this path, including St. Vincent. Barbados would still have certainly hurricane conditions. Same thing for St. Lucia as well. And again, far enough south now where Trinidad comes under this tropical storm watch. The hurricane warning for Martinique, the tropical storm warning for Martinique, tropical storm warning for Martinique, the tropical storm watch for Dominica. Nothing for Guadeloupe North, but again, we're going to have fresh winds, a lot of tropical downpours coming in with this, but obviously we focus in on this area for life-threatening and potentially catastrophic damage with major Hurricane Beryl. Let's look at the models. We're going to take a look at all the different models and break this down for you guys. So we're going to start off right now with the GFS model as far as reflectivity. And again, I think it's just a little bit easier to see this here. I'm going to take off the wind fields. I think that's good enough. We can keep the track on, but the wind fields will allow us to see this a little bit better. Now again, the GFS model has been a little bit on the weaker side than what it should be, to be quite honest. So what we look at the GFS here, and I'm going to show you the HAFS model coming up, is just the track. Again, I think the GFS is slightly too weak with Beryl as it comes through. You can clearly see that, but the timing is going to be lining up. So again, starting very late tonight, first outer feeder bands with some squally weather move into Barbados, some of the Windward Islands, but typically that won't happen until after the midnight hour. And then the core of Beryl will be moving through this area right around daybreak and then slowly exiting late morning and into the early afternoon. But extremely significant impacts are expected for these entire areas. If you live in these areas, please take this as seriously as you possibly can, as Beryl is going to be, again, forecast to be a Category 4 and then riding off towards the west. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but again, the GFS is on the northern side of the model suite. It's still slightly weaker than what everyone else has, but it does still bring some significant weather into the Northwest Caribbean. Still fades out Beryl a little bit quicker than it should. And then, of course, here's 96L on the heels of that, and we'll have to discuss that in a bit as well. Let's look at wind gusts here on the GFS. And again, discounting a little bit the intensity. Do expect it to be a little bit stronger than what the model is showing right now, but this is mainly for timing purposes because I do believe that the GFS model has a good handle on the timing. There's going to be pretty little change here, guys, between now and when Beryl comes through. Sure, there could still be a bit of a shift in the track and a bit of change in the intensity, but we're getting now, within 12 to 18 hours of the first impacts hitting these areas. And there's very little time for any huge shift in track and intensity. And again, if anything, Beryl unfortunately looks to be even stronger and stronger. So you can see at the core of the winds here on the GFS on the north side of the storm. So right on through the Grenadines, Grenada, Barbados, St. Lucia, Tobago, again, under that hurricane warning, it's close enough. And any little farther track south of the model right here would put Tobago more in line for sustained tropical hurricane conditions. And again, these tropical storm force wind gusts are going to extend fairly wide out into this area here. If I back this back up again, and we look at the tropical storm winds, you're going to see some winds certainly over Dominica in that range, and even up towards Montserrat and St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and Barbuda, and Anguilla, St. John, St. Thomas, St. Croix, and the eastern sides of Puerto Rico, 25, 30 with some higher gusts than that. So again, significant wind field coming out of this storm. But as I've mentioned, I believe the GFS model is too weak. You are looking at the HAFS model. This is the Hurricane Analysis and Forecast Systems from the Hurricane Center. It is a newer model. It's extremely high resolution, a lot of computing power. I'm going to take myself off screen. This is looping. It's just one image every 2 seconds because I want you to look at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. That is sustained winds on the HAFS model, okay? So we have a high-end Category 3 to a Category 4 coming through. Again, you get to 130, you're at Category 4. You can see that beginning to intensify as it gets closer to Barbados and Tobago. And there we go, 135, 130 over Grenada, and then back up to 135 as it exits the Windward Islands. This is much more in line with what the Hurricane Center is showing. And again, these are sustained winds on the HAFS model moving through the Windward Islands, teetering on high-end Cat 3, low-end Cat 4. If I snapshot this, same model, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, maximum wind gusts of 155 miles an hour. I can't overstate the potential impacts that Beryl is going to bring to these areas. Again, you need to take this as seriously as you've ever taken any storm. This could have catastrophic impacts to these areas. And again, there's just no real window of time to see Beryl do something that we're not expecting, both in track and intensity. Beryl is coming for the Windward Islands tomorrow morning, and our friends there need to be prepared. It's going to come with a ton of wave action as well, but it's not just the Leeward Islands and the Lesser Antilles in general. It's a lot of the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, the Western Atlantic. We're going to have some swells of 10 to 15 feet that will be pushed by Beryl coming through the Caribbean, portions of the Western Atlantic, and then a secondary surge of potential double-digit swells coming in with Invest 96L, whatever that wants to become as well. The bottom line is that the sea conditions here across our area are going to be very elevated for the week ahead. So any boaters, even well outside of these pinpoint zones, need to be very cautious and check in with the local forecast there. So let's break down the expected impacts of Beryl, okay? And this is directly from the Hurricane Center. Sustained winds of 140 miles an hour. That's 225 kilometers an hour. Wind gusts over 155, nearly 260 kilometers an hour. Rainfall expected to be 3 to 6 inches because Beryl is moving fast, but potentially up to 10 inches in the Grenadines. That's what the Hurricane Center stated. So that's 75 to 100 millimeters, but up to 250 in a couple of spots. A catastrophic potential storm surge of 6 to 9 feet, especially some of the low elevation areas of some of these islands on the eastern facing sides. We could have swells of 10 to 15 feet, possibly even larger. And then of course the general problems of flooding, damage to property, and power outages. Friends, please check in with your local government and your local officials for any specific messaging in your area for steps you need to take to protect life and property. Again, that is on you. That is your responsibility to please check in with local officials. I pass along official information, but things change and you need to check in with your local officials to make sure that you're up to date with what you need to do. All preparations for safety of life and property need to be completed by today, by sunset, because again, we'll start to see the impacts of Beryl coming in as we move into our Monday morning, okay? We're gonna now get into Invest 94L and 96L. As we do so, I appreciate you liking this video. Thank you for the support here at Meteo Mundo. It allows us to keep going. If you haven't subscribed, you want the latest forecasts on Beryl and everything else going on, click that subscribe button right now. Please share this video with family and friends, anyone you think you would get something out of this and all the information that they need. Of course, we appreciate the support of our members and the super thanks, and also the other ways that you can support us here in the description below. We're now going to jump into Invest 94L and 96L. So let's start off with 94L. First of all, this brought very significant flooding to portions of Belize, especially the northern areas of Belize yesterday. This was an area that had been so dry, drought-stricken, and then that Central American gyre kicked in, and these tropical waves came through, and now we have too much rain in too short of amount of time. If there's a little bit of a saving grace, we've had some rain this morning in portions of Belize, it should dry out a bit. I can't rule out more storms trying to fire up along the coast and move in, but it should not be as widespread and heavy for today because a lot of that juice is getting sucked into 94L as it tries to develop. At this point in time, it's about a 40% chance of development here in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. Winds are 35 miles an hour. We could get a depression. We could get a depression out of 94L before it moves into the northern side of Mexico. It's going to remain a sloppy, disorganized system regardless. It's going to bring very heavy rain to portions of Mexico, so more heavy rain for the areas that had some heavy rain from Tropical Storm Alberto. When Alberto moved through, at least for a time, the Central American gyre is a little bit interrupted because of the wraparound from Beryl. So I do expect Central America in general to dry out a bit the next couple of days. That would be true. Sorry about that. That would be true for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands as well. Still could see some localized storms, but just not as widespread or significant. Then we see Invest 94L move away, and we'll see the return of the afternoon storms with the Central American gyre. But for now, 94L is going to be potentially developing in the southwest Gulf of Mexico and then moving into Mexico itself. So back on the board here, we have 96L, and we'll be watching this one throughout the week. Again, it's a very disorganized invest area right now. If you notice on the north side, all these clouds are basically west to east. When I show you the water vapor imagery, it's butting up against some drier air. Again, that area of mid-level high pressure, which escorted Beryl directly west into the Windward Islands is also keeping Invest 96L at a lower latitude right now. My thought on this, and I'm going to take off the formation zone so it's a little bit clearer to see. My thought is that we're going to ride the southern periphery of this ridge with 96L and then eventually gain a little bit of latitude around the western extent of that where you can see that moisture return. So when I put on the forecast models of 96L, they're going to get a little bit ingested here with a barrel, but you can get an idea that there still is a relatively spread of models here. Again, some of the models, some of the models take 96L through the Windward Islands. Others bow 96L a little bit farther north quicker. There still is a lot of variability in the models at this point in time, but this one is going to be one to watch. If I go back over to the reflectivity of the GFS, and I loop this into motion here, and I'm going to go ahead and take off a few things so it's just a little bit easier to see. So let me dump some of all of this other stuff here. It's going to be just a little bit simpler to see here. So now we're just simply looking at the radar output, the reflectivity. Just want you to notice this is 96L on the GFS. It does come through the Windward Islands there, a little bit lower latitude, and then tries to work its way north into the Central Caribbean, potentially impacting places like Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, maybe Jamaica. But there's a lot of uncertainty with 96L. But we could get another named storm on the heels of Beryl moving through potentially the same kind of path. Maybe a little bit farther north, certainly looks to be a little bit weaker, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't have a tropical storm out of it. So 96L is one that we're going to have to be watching on the heels of Beryl, and of course 94L will move into Mexico and dissipate rather quickly. Friends, that's the latest on everything happening in the tropics. You can follow us across all of social media, Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, MyMediaMundo@gmail.com. In between these forecast videos, our 24/7 live stream is running. Make sure you check that out. I'm going to have another video update coming up here throughout the day on Sunday, and also I'll be doing some live coverage with Beryl as well. We'll talk much more about that here at Meteo Mundo. Again, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing. Everyone take care. Our thoughts are with our friends in the Windward Islands, and I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.